I want you to picture a scenario. It's late, maybe 3:00 a.m.
Okay.
You're driving home, and the streets are just completely dead. Ghost town.
No one around.
Not a soul. And you pull up to a red light at this totally empty intersection. You stop, and you just wait.
You're just sitting there idling for no one.
Exactly. You're staring at this red light, waiting for its permission to go, even though there's no cross traffic, no cops, no cameras. You could just go, but you don't.
It's a strange feeling when you catch yourself doing that, isn't it? It feels almost, I don't know, sacred or something.
It does. Or here's another one. Think about an elevator, a crowded one. You walk in, what do?
You turn around and face the door immediately.
Everyone does. Now, what if someone walked in, stood right in the middle, and just faced everyone else, making eye contact?
Oh, you'd think they were a psychopath.
You'd be terrified. The hair on your arms would stand up.
Because they're breaking this invisible script we all follow.
Yes. But why? Why do we do these things? Is it just habit, or is there something, hardwired into us that makes us fall in line?
Well, that's the big question. We tell ourselves we're just being logical or, good citizens. But the sources we're diving into today suggest the answer is a lot more complex. And frankly, a bit darker.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we were doing a forensic analysis of obedience. We're looking at why we conform and comply, even when it goes against our own logic or even our morals.
And it's not just about following orders. This is a huge collision of biology, psychology, and social structure. We've got a heavy stack of sources today. We are revisiting the classics, like the frankly terrifying experiments of Stanley Milgram and Solomon Asch.
But we're not just stopping there, right? We're going deeper. We're pulling in the cognitive science of Daniel Kahneman and Antonio Damasio to see what's happening under the hood.
And then we're grounding all of that in the existential philosophy of someone like Fromm and the structural theories of Michel Foucault. We're really covering the whole map.
So what's the mission here? What are we trying to figure out?
We're going to map what I'm calling the cascade of compliance. We want to understand how our brains, our bodies, and our societies kind of conspire to rob us of our autonomy.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we have to start with the classics. If you took Psych 101, you've heard of Asch and Milgram. But reading these sources, again, the details are what really got to me.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about lines on a card. It's about how fragile our grip on reality actually is. So let's set the scene for Asch. It's the 1950s.
Right.
And the setup is deceptively simple. You have a subject, the naive participant, in a room with a group of other people. They're shown two cards. One is a target line, the other has three comparison lines.
And just to be clear, I looked at the diagrams. It is not an optical illusion. The answer is obvious.
Painfully obvious. But here's the catch. Everyone else in the room is an actor. And on certain trials, they all agree beforehand to give the exact same wrong answer.
So you're the subject. You know the answer is B. Your eyes tell you it's B. But the first person says it's A. The second person says A. Then the third, A. By the time it gets to you, what's going on in your head?
You start to sweat. Your heart rate spikes.
Yeah.
You actually feel physically sick. And Asch found that 75% of participants conformed to the group's wrong answer at least once.
75%, that's a massive number. They literally denied the evidence of their own eyes.
And when he interviewed them later, some of them actually started to believe their eyes were failing them. They thought, I must be crazy. But most of them admitted they knew the group was wrong. They just went along to avoid social friction.
Social friction. That's a very polite way of saying they were terrified of being the odd one out.
Exactly. The social reality felt more real than physical reality.
Yeah.
Would rather be wrong and belong than be right and alone.
So that's Asch, which is, relatively low stakes. But then you jump to 1961, and Stanley Milgram takes this to a much, much darker place.
Milgram wasn't just curious about conformity. He was trying to understand the Holocaust. He wanted to know how ordinary people, shopkeepers, fathers, could participate in atrocities. So he built the shock machine.
The study always gives me chills. Walk us through the mechanics again, because the procedure is so important here.
Okay, so you have the teacher, who's the real subject, and you have the learner, an actor, strapped into a chair in the next room. The teacher asks questions, and for every wrong answer, they have to deliver an electric shock.
And the shocks escalate.
Right, that's the key. They go up in 15-volt increments, all the way to 450 volts.
Yeah.
And the switches are clearly labeled. It goes from slight shock all the way to danger, severe shock, and the last two switches just have XXX.
Just XX. That's so ominous. And the actor starts reacting, grunts, then complaints about a heart condition, then screaming, and then just silence.
And despite all that, 65% of participants went all the way to 450 volts.
Two-thirds. Two-thirds of people would potentially kill someone just because a guy in a lab coat told them to.
But here's where we have to correct a common misconception. People think these subjects were sadistic. They weren't. The transcripts show they were in agony.
They were stressing out.
Severely. They were sweating, stuttering, begging the experimenter to let them stop. But, and this is the key, they didn't stop.
That's the part I can't wrap my head around. If you're agonizing, why not just walk out?
Milgram called it the agentic shift. This is a crucial idea. The participants stopped seeing themselves as responsible. They shifted into a state where they were just an instrument of the authority.
A psychological detachment. I'm not doing this. The experiment is doing this.
Precisely. I'm just a tool.
Uh-huh.
And the experimenter used very specific prods. He never threatened them. He just said things like, the experiment requires that you continue, or
You have no other choice.
you have no other choice, which is such a powerful lie. Of course they had a choice. But psychologically, they felt trapped. Milgram called them binding factors. It's politeness. It's the awkwardness of being rude to an authority figure, and it's the foot in the door thing. You've already given a 15-volt shock, then 30. Where do you draw the line?
It's a trap. If 45 was okay, why isn't 60? It's a slippery slope.
Exactly. To stop at 150 volts means admitting the shock at 135 was wrong. It's psychologically easier to just keep going.
So that's the external pressure. But I want to know what's happening inside us. Why doesn't our brain just scream, stop?
Well, the sources suggest our brain is sort of conspiring against us. For this, we have to look at Daniel Kahneman's work, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Oh, I love Kahneman. But I know him from, economics. How does this apply to obedience?
It's all about energy. Kahneman says the brain has two modes. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, and lazy. It uses shortcuts. System 2 is slow, logical, and takes real effort.
So system 1 is your gut reaction. System 2 is doing your taxes.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Now here's a kicker. Dissent saying no requires system 2. It requires you to stop, analyze, override your social programming. That's metabolically expensive.
You mean it literally burns more calories?
It does. Glucose. Your brain hates doing that work. Obedience, on the other hand, is a system 1 default. It's efficient. Authority says do X. I do X. No thinking required.
So we're lazy conformists. But it feels like more than that, doesn't it? When I think about defying a boss, I feel it in my gut. It's anxiety.
You're hitting on something vital. And that brings us to Antonio Damasio and his somatic marker hypothesis.
Somatic as in body.
Exactly. Damasio studied patients with damage to a specific part of the brain, the VMPFC. These people were perfectly rational. They could beat you at chess, but they couldn't make simple decisions.
Why not?
No gut feeling. They lacked the emotional connection to their choices.
So how does that relate to obedience?
Damasio argues that when you think about doing something risky, like yelling no at the guy in the lab coat, your body accesses past experiences of social rejection.
And it sends a signal.
It sends a wave of negativity. A knot in your stomach, a racing heart. That's the somatic marker. It's a biological alarm bell screaming, don't do this, you'll be cast out.
Wow. So we're obeying to relieve physical stress. We comply to make the stomachache go away.
Precisely. We don't just think obedience, we feel the need for it. Your own body punishes you for even thinking about rebellion.
That feels like the trap is complete. You're fighting the room, your lazy brain, and your own body. But there's another layer, isn't there? The existential part of it.
This is where we have to turn to Erich Fromm's book, Escape from Freedom. Fromm was trying to figure out why millions of people flock to authoritarian leaders like Hitler.
You'd think people would always choose freedom, right? We fight wars over it.
You'd think. But Fromm argues that modern freedom comes with a terrible price. Isolation. In the Middle Ages, you knew your place, you belonged. Now you're just an individual. Alone.
And that's lonely.
It creates what Fromm calls existential anxiety. We feel small and powerless. And that feeling is so unbearable that we actively look for ways to escape freedom, to give it back.
That's a paradox. We escape from freedom.
And one of his main escape mechanisms is automaton conformity.
Automaton, like a robot.
Exactly. To avoid the terror of being an individual, we just adopt the personality society offers us. We become exactly like everyone else, because if I'm like everyone else, then I'm not alone. I disappear into the crowd.
So we want to be told what to do. The herd feels safe.
Fromm says we surrender our individuality to blend in. And Carl Jung would say we do that to avoid facing our own shadow, the darker parts of ourselves we don't want to admit exist. It's easier to follow a leader than to be a whole person.
Okay, so the pressure is external, the machinery is internal, the need is existential. But what about the environment we live in?
The structural prison. For this, we look at Michel Foucault and the concept of the panopticon.
The panopticon. That was Jeremy Bentham's prison design, right?
Right. Imagine a circular prison, cells on the outside, facing a central tower. The guard in the tower can see into every cell. But, and this is the genius of it, the prisoners can't see into the tower.
So you never know if you're being watched.
You could be watched at any moment. So what do? You have to assume you are always being watched.
And so you behave.
You do more than that. You internalize the gaze. You become your own jailer. The authority moves from the tower into your own head.
That's the red light at 3 a.m. The cop isn't there, but the panopticon is in my head. I'm watching myself.
Foucault argues this is the goal of modern society. And if you think about it, we've built the ultimate panopticon today.
Social media. The phone in our pocket.
Exactly.
Well,
We are constantly performing for an invisible audience, anticipating how we'll be judged by the algorithm, by our followers. We self-regulate constantly,
we bought the prison and we carry the guard tower around with us.
and we pay a monthly fee for it.
Okay, this is getting heavy. We're fighting our brains, our bodies, our existential fears, and an invisible prison. Is there any way out? How do we break this cascade of compliance?
It is daunting, but the sources do offer some hope. And funnily enough, we can go right back to Asch's line experiment.
How so?
Remember I said 75% conformed? Well, Asch ran a variation where he planted just one other actor who gave the correct answer. Just one dissenter.
And what happened?
The conformity rate plummeted. It dropped to almost zero.
Wow, just one person breaking the spell was enough.
Unanimity is the spell. When you see one other person trust their own eyes, it gives you permission to do the same. Autonomy is contagious. So the first step is to be that ally or find that ally.
That's powerful. You don't have to lead a revolution, just break the consensus. What about the internal stuff? The System 1 laziness?
The solution there is what we could call the pause. You have to consciously engage System 2. When you feel that impulse to agree, that anxiety, you have to stop and force yourself to do the work.
You have to be willing to burn the glucose.
And you have to be willing to feel the pain. With Damasio's somatic marker, you have to reframe it. When you feel that knot in your stomach, you usually interpret it as stop, danger.
Right, turn back.
You need to reinterpret it as a signal that you're facing a real choice.
So instead of, I'm scared, I should stop, it's, I'm scared, which means I'm about to do something authentic.
This anxiety is the price of my freedom. It's about tolerating that discomfort, which leads to Fromm's solution, individuation, developing a genuine self.
It's about building a self that's strong enough to stand alone.
Exactly. It's moving from freedom from authority to freedom to create something real.
Okay, so let's recap. We started with the red light. We saw how Asch and Milgram showed our susceptibility to pressure, how we shift our agency away.
Then we looked at the biology, our brain's efficient laziness, and the somatic markers that physically punish us for dissent.
We looked at the existential trap, our fear of being alone, and finally the panopticon, the guard tower we built in our own minds.
And the way out is through awareness, engaging the slow brain, finding allies, and being willing to sit with the discomfort of real freedom.
It changes how I look at everything, really.
It should. And if I can leave our listeners with one final thought, it's this. We often equate comfort with freedom. We think, I feel safe, I feel good, so I must be free.
But based on everything we've talked about, comfort might just be a sign that you're conforming really, really well.
Exactly. So the question is, if you feel perfectly comfortable and secure right now, is it because you are truly free, or is it because you have successfully become an automaton?
That is a disturbing question, and a perfect place to leave it. Thank you for listening to this deep dive.
Stay curious, and maybe stay a little uncomfortable.
See you next time.